Good evening, New Bedford Guide and South Coast residents. Chris Resendes back from vacation, headed down south, got burnt up, as you can tell by the bright red head. Hope you all enjoyed the Madeira feast. It was, surely it was enjoyable. It's probably the first time I haven't gone in a long time, but it's kind of good for me to stay away. I find myself enjoying the wine a little too much, and I was lucky enough the week prior to sit down with Ian and President Agrella and get my share of Madeira wine prior to the feast. We have two segments tonight, great guests that are actually doing a lot for their community. The first two are moms, PTO members, and community organizers who are trying to make a difference in the community by introducing a playground at their kids' school, all the while memorializing the hero. Our second guest will come on probably about 7:20ish, and that's City Councilor Joe Lopes. Everybody loves him. He's a good guy. He's very popular in the community, and we'll have some questions to ask him. Nothing hard-hitting, but if you have any questions, be sure to ask in the comments, and we'll be sure to get the questions going. As I do each week, I do my little spiel, I call it, and this one hits home a little bit. This morning, while going through my prayers, I actually came across Philippians 3:13. I do the King James Version, so it sounds pretty cool. Brethren, I count not myself to have apprehended, but this one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind, and reaching forth unto those things which are before. We all fail. A couple weeks ago, I told you all that I failed daily, and I'm broken just like everybody else. It's not just the guy on the side of the road panhandling who's failing. It's not the overweight lady who's failing with her fitness. It's people that look like me and you and all the other guests tonight. We all fail. But what we must do is put that behind us. Learn from it, though. Use it as a lesson. And we'll continue to fail. And hopefully you'll continue to learn. Whether it's in faith, marriage, business, raising your children, fitness, or diets, we will all stumble. But we all must remember that failure is not the opposite of success. It truly is part of it. In Proverbs 24:16, again we are reminded, for a just man falleth 7 times and riseth up again. We must all know that failing is not losing. It's actually you're gaining. You're gaining, you're learning, you're gaining experience, and hopefully you're taking these losses and these little bumps in the road as lessons, and you're growing from each one. Keep at your faith, your marriage, your businesses, and your fitness and diets. I see a lot of people saying, hey, Chris, you lost a lot of weight. What are you doing? And I had a couple chicken wings today. I failed today. But you know what? Tomorrow I will get up at 4:30, and get to the gym and work those off and start again and continue to learn that, hey, next time, get full before you head out and meet Mike at Greasy Luck. Then you look back at these situations like I did today, and you assess, learn, and grow. But one more thing, if it was too easy, anything, fitness, marriage, kids, business, it wouldn't be worth it. It won't last. Anything that's easy come, easy go. And that's just the truth. It's an old statement, and it holds true, and it's been like that since biblical times and before then. Hard work, results are the most sustaining results. So keep at it. Don't get down on yourself, guys, whether it's your sobriety, anything that you're struggling with. We all go through it. I have several things I'm dealing with right now that I know that I'm doing terribly at. But I'm actively working on it. And I know that tomorrow I'll do better, and I'll learn from today's mistakes. That's my spiel. Hopefully I can touch somebody tonight with that. Tonight, we have 2 super moms in the greater New Bedford area. Both are heavily, heavily involved with multiple things. We were sitting down before the show, and they were trying to be modest, and Councilor Lopes said, no, that's not going to happen. And he named about 7 other things that they're also involved with. Carla, Mourao, and Sandy Douglas, 2 PTO moms who are doing everything they can to get this new playground out of Campbell School, which it's desperately needed. But in the meantime, they're also trying to name it after Sergeant Sean Gannon, who was murdered while performing a warrant apprehension out in the Cape on April 12th, I believe, 2018. Good evening, ladies.
Good evening, Chris.
Sandy, don't be nervous. I can see you like tense. You were smiling and having a good time before. So we all know you guys are heavily involved. You do other stuff. We were talking about the other stuff. But what came about the playground? Was that first, or was it Sergeant Gannon that died and said, hey, we got to do something and put this together and make a positive out of this negative? Which one was it?
Well, the playground came first, and so we've actually started our playground efforts almost a year ago. Our former PTO president, Heather Civil, came up with this great idea to have a fun run, and principal approved. It was implemented with the help of one of our paraprofessionals, Jill Zangao. It was a very successful fundraiser. So we did well, and the work began to start researching playground companies and things of that sort. We had a good amount of money, but we were still a few thousand short. So in early April, the PTO group decided to reach out to local businesses, see if we could get some sponsorships, make this become a reality. We felt we needed it. We owed it to our children, our families who contributed so much to that fun run. So we sent out the letter to a bunch of businesses, our elected officials, and New Bedford Guide actually did a story on us on April 9th. On April 10th, we received an email, our first email, regarding the playground from Mr. Patrick Gannon. In his email, he wrote that he applauded our efforts because he's actually a Campbell School neighbor. His home is located across the street from the school.
So it'll affect him having a nice new playground.
Correct. So it'll be something nice to look at when they look out their window, when they drive by every day. So he reached out to us. He, like I said, he applauded us. He promised to make a donation, which he did, and gave us some suggestions on how to reach out to the other neighbors. And we, took his advice. We did what he asked. We went door to door, sent out flyers to all the neighbors. And then 2 days later, we hear on the radio that Sergeant Sean Gannon was killed in the line of duty. And my head just started spinning. What are the chances I meet a Gannon via email 2 days prior?
And it was his dad?
It was his father. It's his father. So once I confirmed this information, I reached out to our PTO. They had already known about the email because I was so excited to get that email from a complete stranger who took the time to recognize our efforts. So I reached out to the PTO, and my co-chair, Sandy, her husband's a canine officer.
I was about to interrupt you and say, how does that feel, knowing that, once you guys started discussing this and knowing that your husband's on the job as well? He is a canine officer as well, which the similarities are eerie.
Right. And I just felt extremely saddened for the family because I put myself in that family's shoes, especially his wife, knowing that this is something that our husbands do every single day and leave for work, and we just take it for granted. And I'm sure she said goodbye to her husband that morning like we all do, and then he never came back. And it just was something that my husband and I were just so emotional about. And then when Carla called me, we were actually on vacation. When Carla called me to tell me that it was Mr. Gannon's son, we immediately felt that what can we do for this family to help them, to comfort them in some way? Because Mr. Gannon took the time to reach out to us. We felt like we needed to do something. So a couple of days went by, and my husband and I were talking, and Carla and I were in constant communication. And then Saturday morning, I woke up at like 6 in the morning. My husband and I were talking, and then we both said, we're doing that playground, and they live right there. What if? And I said, I already know what you're going to say. I need to call Carla. And I called Carla at like 6:30 in the morning on a Saturday. And in just telling her the story, she says, I already know what you're going to suggest. And she says, I 100% agree. And that's what led us to deciding to name the playground in his memory.
Now, there wasn't much other PTO moms saying, nah, let's do other things. It was an instant.
It was unanimous.
Yes,
it was unanimous. I don't even think they gave it 2 seconds to respond. We approached the group. We have a group message going on. We put it out there. Coincidentally, like we had this idea. They without a doubt wanted to do this in memory of Sergeant Gannon.
So
But-
obviously a little time passed, and you then talked to the Gannons again.
Well, when Sandy reached out to me that Saturday morning, Sergeant Gannon hadn't been laid to rest yet. So we knew we wanted to give it some time,
Yeah, of
give the
course.
family some room to grieve, to mourn. In the meantime, Sandy, just happens that he's here in the room tonight, reached out to Councilor Lopes on how we could make this happen and what are our next steps. And of course, the first thing he suggested was reach out to the family and see if they are okay with this. And also to Bruce Oliver, our school committee member, who is the chairperson for this facilities subcommittee for all of New Bedford Public Schools. So we did that. We reached out to him. He gave us a big thumbs up. And then the mayor got involved, and the school committee on May 14th unanimously voted to approve the naming of our new playground after Sergeant Sean M. Gannon.
Amazing. Now, we do this. We go through the whole process. Where are we at with the family once you finally did that? It must have been, what, a month or two that you let it go by before you let them know, or?
Well, I think prior to the school committee meeting on May 14th, the mayor had offered to reach out to Mr. and Mrs. Gannon.
He did it themselves.
He did it himself before he put in the request with the school committee on the agenda. And she gave us Mrs. Gannon and Mr. Gannon gave us their blessing. So,
I mean, what a beautiful gift for a bad situation, to have literally the playground. I mean, when you go through a tragedy like this, now you can at least, most guys just get a stone and some flowers, you know. They're going to have a place where children find joy and families find joy. And it's named after their son. I mean,
and
I wish
circumstances
it was
were different.
circumstances.
Correct.
But I mean, in this case, it's probably something that's going to be great for them to, you know, be able to look and see. Now, they didn't have any grandchildren, right? Through Sean.
No,
Yeah, so
not that I know of.
it'll be his kids. You know,
Correct.
it'll be the Gannon
Nieces and
playground.
nephews.
Yeah.
Well, we feel, when we're on the playground, we feel a strong connection to Sergeant Gannon. I know that sounds cliche, but Mrs. Gannon told us that Sean spent a lot of time on our school grounds playing, walking his dog, and that he loves children. So that, you know, just knowing that Sean was on those grounds at one point in his childhood, it's just the best place to build something in memory of him. And it's something that the community can enjoy. Get the kids off their tablets, get them unplugged. You know,
Perfect square, perfect rectangular babysitter, an iPad.
yeah, but you know,
And I'm
sometimes
guilty of it sometimes.
they need the
We all are.
physical, the activity. We have
Absolutely.
to promote the health and wellness. You know, keep kids out of trouble, because when they're bored, is
That's when they get in trouble.
Yes,
And especially
so-
now when, I mean, we can digress a little, because we're all parents here. And we're on the topic of boredom creates problems when you're a child.
Mhm.
Kids want to do something. Kids want to be involved. And you're online now, especially with all the crap going on. I had some experts on human trafficking on in the fall, I believe. Maybe it was winter. And a lot of human trafficking, people think it's just like people from Brazil getting smuggled into America. No, it's a lot of local American citizen children who are getting exploited through these traffickers. And it's because they're bored on this, you know. So to give them a place to go and have some recreation and fun and involvement, it's amazing what you guys are doing. Now, obviously, we have the issue of money.
We do.
I mean, these things just don't come up, and, you know, everybody just say, well, they'll get a grant for it, or, you know, the family got a GoFundMe of all this money and, you know, all the stuff you're going to hear. But the fact of the matter is, we're still well short of what it takes to get this going.
Correct.
You guys want to talk about the fundraising efforts that you have going on? One of you guys do one and the other one do the other.
So after all this happened, came up with a playground committee. We had teacher volunteers, parent volunteers, community volunteers. We have a group of about 16 wonderful, amazing volunteers. And one of our PTO playground members is related to a South Coast Health employee. So we were at a function together, and Steve Canessa approached me and said they felt as South Coast Health employees that they needed to do something for Mr. and Mrs. Gannon as well, because they're also employed by South Coast Health. So we decided to partner up, and he offered to get his design team to create the T-shirts that we are wearing today. Thank you, Chris, for your support. And so he did all this for us. Well, the entire South Coast Health marketing team did all this for us. They gave us that option to do it online. They provided us with that Moore store, which has been so helpful. And last I checked, they had sold over 1,300 T-shirts. And
wow.
All net proceeds will be donated to the Memorial Playground in Sean's name. So we are so thankful for this. This was bigger than I expected it to be. The support of the community is just absolutely humbling. And when I am out and I see somebody with our T-shirts, I really literally just want to go up to you and hug you and thank you for helping us, because you're helping not just our children at Campbell School, but the entire youth in the city of New Bedford and visitors as well.
Just gotta be careful who you're hugging these days.
I know.
Careful. Some
Well,
jealous wives and girlfriends out there.
I do hold back, so, but just know that it does warm my heart every time I see our T-shirt out there.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
It's amazing. What else you got going on for fundraising?
We have another fundraiser on Saturday, September 8th. It's going to be at the Madeira Feast Grounds. Hardwire Band has been so generous as to play at the event that evening. We also have DJ Wade Gomes that will be providing his services that night.
Awesome.
The tickets are $40 a piece, and we're going to have hors d'oeuvres, and it will be cash bar.
Again, the date?
Saturday, September 8th at the Madeira Field.
I'll put it in my calendar.
Good idea.
I missed the feast, so I might as well go to this, right?
There you go. We may
Any
or may
Madeira
not
wine?
have
Did you guys
some.
get a
We
barrel
may or may
there?
not have a barrel. So.
If that's not enough incentive, never mind helping out this great cause. You also have a fundraiser that you started on GoFund, which is quite short, and it's an easy way. If you can't make it to the event, you don't like gray T-shirts, you can kick in $5, and we'll post the link on the comment section at the end of the show. We will share this again, but I mean, it's $5. You guys out there, you're helping a kid and you're memorializing a hero. And now the part that I never heard, his parents live across the street. I mean, just that enough. This needs to happen.
It does.
Yes, it does.
It really does need to happen. Now you also set up at the, speaking of feast, I saw some pictures. You guys were at the Madeira Feast. How'd you do there? Were people generous?
It was a little rainy, but we did well considering it was, the weather wasn't as nice as we would have liked it to be, but we did get a lot of support.
Yeah. Now, I did a few years back, I don't know if you remember, the Betsy B. Winslow did that playground they did there. I'm like, my brain's working, messed up today.
You're on vacation mode still.
I don't even know what mode I'm in. I have so much on my mind.
We feel
They
your
did
pain.
it, and it was a lot of community-based builders. Like, people were there actually with screwdrivers, with ratchet sets, helping. I mean, I brought a community service crew from the trial court there for 3 days, moving the mulch. Is that something they're gonna have the opportunity to do as well, or are we hiring an outside contractor just to come in and slam it all together?
It's all part of the playground vendor's design and price. We're getting a pretty decent deal on the installation, and where they can do it in one day.
Wow.
Versus we,
It's like a 5-day thing.
at least,
Yeah.
and since most of us do work full-time, we just think it's in the best interest of everybody if we just let the experts handle it. No offense to everyone out there who can, hold a hammer. However, it's just not something that we would like to do at this time, and we really are just so anxious to see this built. And so if the vendor can do it, and they have the experience in building and installing, why not?
Excellent. Anything else that you got going on that you want to bring up while you're here and you have the viewers?
On Tuesday, August 14th, Carla and I are going to be at the Campbell School playground, and we're going to set up a table. So anyone that didn't have a chance to come out and see us on Saturday to purchase these wonderful shirts, they can come and see us on Tuesday, August 14th from 5 to 7:30. We will be at the school, we will have the T-shirts, and we will also have tickets available to purchase for the fundraiser on September 8th.
Make sure you, South Coast is a good partner of ours, New Bedford Guides, so, and obviously we're here to support you guys, so make sure you let me know, Carla, and I'll go out there,
Absolutely.
we'll go live.
Okay.
Oh, thank
Hopefully generate a few people to go there, because people forget, you know what I mean? at least like this, you go live and
you get to see the future site of where
Yes.
we're installing, and I think that's important.
And maybe it'll hit hard when people see that the father and the mother of this individual are across the street. That resonates with me. That's just like stuff like that. Like, I'm a mama's boy,
It's
so just to
enduring.
know, like, you know,
The connections, it's
The
just
connection,
enduring.
it's
And then one
amazing.
of our playground committee members, Nicole Brody, was Sean's 5th grade teacher at the Catholic school he attended. She's with us now. She's our 5th grade teacher. So it's just all these little connections, and it's
And
just
she's on
like,
the committee.
and she's on our committee. She just did a public service announcement with cable access. Look forward to seeing that. So it's just, you know, we're all connected somehow to Sean, and we just feel this strong presence of him around us. And I just want to see this happen and come to life.
excellent. I mean, guys, we do a lot of stuff in the city. I'm doing the cuts for kids, and everybody's been so generous. And I know it seems like everywhere you turn there's a cause, and I get it. Now with Facebook, it does feel that way. But if, you know, we're all supposed to give. It's just part of what we are as a society, part of what we are as human beings. And the reason why I had asked about working, because there are people who can't afford the $5, but they want to help. You know, that's why I brought that up. So
Thank
if
you.
you find it in your heart, please, guys, donate. I mean, you got these moms who are working hard. And don't forget what this ultimately is for. It's the playground for the kids. We keep, you know, I keep going back to Sean Gannon, because I have a connection. I used to work at the Sheriff's Department. I've known your husband. And a lot of my friends are on the job, so it, you know, whenever I see an officer killed in the line of duty, it really hits home with me. And, you know, I pray that it never happens again, especially to my friends. And there are a number of them who are truly my good friends that it's sad to see this. But we must remember, though, that this is actually for the kids. One thing we always try to do is just invest in children. And it's important because sooner or later, they're going to be the grown-ups, and you want to teach them these little lessons like, hey man, this community came together for us when I was a kid. I had a lot of good times on that playground, and then it'll be their turn to take over. Let's set the examples, let's show the kids how it's done, and let's start donating. And again, we're going to put all the links down. Tuesday I'll go live with you again, and that's about it. What about the other kid stuff? How's everybody's family? Everybody busy for the summer? Enjoying it so far?
Yes, they're enjoying it too much.
Yeah.
They're already asking how many weeks left, so.
Well, my wife's a teacher. I mean, so you guys know that August, as she puts it, is like a long Sunday night, she says.
Yes, it's true.
Because
It
she's
feels
like,
that way.
it's gonna, oh gosh, it's coming to an end. I gotta go back. I gotta go back.
My friend Lisa actually mentioned to me the other day that after the Madeira Feast, so the Madeira Feast is usually a sign that summer's almost over, and it's just, I was at the Madeira Feast this weekend as well, and it just starting to feel that way. And then the nights start getting cooler.
It is, but
And
right now the
yeah.
AC shuts off in the building at
Not
6,
cool in
and
here,
trust me,
guys.
it is very summery in this building right
So
now.
if we're glowing,
It is. Yeah, they, our makeup lady didn't show up today. We don't really have a makeup lady, or else I wouldn't look this ugly every week. I probably still would look ugly, but with makeup, which would be even funnier. Ladies, thank you so much for all you do. You have
you
a
so
bunch of
much.
people watching tonight. You have Kelly DeGovea, so glad to be on the team. Thank you, Carla and Sandy, for doing everything that you're doing. Darren DaCosta, so happy to learn you'll be returning this year, Mrs. DeGovea. Thanks. They had a little side conversation there.
are we interrupting?
Pretty cool. Why don't you guys stop PMing on each other? I had the Samantha says that Lobenstein, I'm terrible at names. She has the pleasure of working with you guys on the committee, and you guys have been doing an amazing job, and the dedication is crazy. You guys rock.
And it takes a village, so it's not just Sandy and I.
These are
They're-
just the faces.
Right.
Trust me, they made it well known that it is a large group of moms and surely dads, but
Yes.
And we have individuals on our committee who have no children at the school department.
That's amazing.
Just want to help out.
and you have Ian Aber who said that he's proud of you guys and all that stuff. So, Ian, write a check out of your campaign fund, buy a shirt, and put your money where your mouth is, brother. We know you need some money to run from there someday, but I'm sure you got $50 hanging around. Joe bought a shirt today, just so you know.
I'll match the rest of what they get for $5 donations for the rest of the show.
Awesome. What was that now?
I'll match whatever they get for $5 donations for the rest of the show.
Guys, if you donate from 7:25 to 8 o'clock, $5 increments
On the GoFundMe?
on the GoFundMe,
So we know what the number is.
Councilor Lopes will match it tonight, so.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Counselor.
Thank you so much. Anybody else want to match? Just kidding.
I'm
No, we're
broke.
very
I got
thankful.
kids. My daughter just
I'm talking about the
started
viewers.
eating. Oh, we're gonna get people to donate.
We have to make this happen.
Especially on Tuesday, I'll air it again. I'll split this up, and
Okay.
we're gonna get viewers, and we're gonna keep touching upon it. And every once in a while, I'll bring you in on Skype and say, "How we doing?"
Absolutely.
And we're not
Thank
gonna
you.
We
let people
appreciate that.
forget who you are and what you're doing. Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you,
for
Chris.
having us.
Wasn't
Thank
that
you.
bad, right?
No,
You look nervous at first, Sandy.
it took me a minute.
God, it's just me. I mean, seriously, who the heck am I? And it's only a computer screen. Nobody
Once
really
we start
cares.
talking, it just flows.
What I did was I prefaced the show with "We all fail," just in case.
Figured
I
that.
always leave a trap door. If we all
Wow,
fail,
I
you
was
won't
like,
feel
wow,
bad.
He really thinks we're that bad. I'm like,
Not
well,
at
now
all.
I really feel like I'm gonna.
It's funny. I was talking to Jamie Casey. Like, I don't know. You don't have to be faithful to understand this, but I'm the type of guy, like, I prepare this for each show. And it seems like the day of my show, when I'm doing my morning devotionals, when I'm at the gym, listening to my podcast, whatever, it's like, man upstairs just is like, all right, that's what you're going to talk about tonight. And that's what happened again today. I don't write these things out. Like, I don't,
That's amazing.
and it's just like every day, like, I'm like, all
Very
right,
natural.
today's thing, you know.
Mhm.
It is natural when you try. Something I should have been doing a lot longer than I have been. And hopefully I can keep on this track. Ladies,
Thank you.
God bless. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much
God
for being
bless.
here. Time to pay the bills, guys. We have an ad from our sponsor, Frank Durant, who's running for County Commissioner.
And his name was
We got
Bud.
a politician talking in the middle of the show.
Yeah.
We're back, guys, but Joe's in the middle of a conversation. Joe, he's tell everybody the story. Tell them about the car show.
Actually, it's the truth. I was about 17 years old, and I was with a good friend of mine who was a police officer and got into a car accident. And I was terrified to call my father.
We've all had that one.
It wasn't even a great car, but it was my mom's car. It was a Mercury Topaz, and I destroyed it. And I called Bud's Automotive. And Bud and my father were great friends. I'll never forget it. And Bud called my father. Now, the long story, Bud lost his daughter in a bad car accident.
Oh, boy.
So when he called my father, he said, hey, John, Joe got into a car accident. And my father was like, the car. His first concern was the car, as most people would think it's the car.
Well, if it was you, then Joe would. What's his name? Buzz.
Bud.
Bud wouldn't be calling you dad.
And my father said, John, it's only a car. And my father knew what
Wow.
happened to his daughter because they had been friends for
Yeah.
years. And whole conversation changed. Is he okay? We can replace the car. All of those things. So life's way too short, And I got my shirt, but life is way too short.
It is, man. And again, back to the beginning of the show, we all fail, man.
We do. I can't count the number of times in my life that I've looked back and said, geez Louise, I've made my mistakes. Good, bad, or indifferent, you learn from each one. You're talking about failing. 4 years ago, I got into my car accident on my bike and realized real quick, faith. I literally remember being at the intersection of Fairhaven, waking up in a pool of blood, thinking, I'm going to be paralyzed.
Crazy.
And just wanting to move my feet, and I couldn't. Because my shoelaces were so tied because I wasn't clipping onto the bike, and I couldn't move my toes. Cop comes running across the street, and I've read the police report, comes running across the street and tells me not to move. And I'm literally lying there training for a half Ironman is what I wanted to do, thinking, oh my God, the biggest failure in my life could have just happened.
Yeah.
And you look at life a lot different. You realize the fragility of what is around you every day.
It's easy come, easy go. Sergeant Gannon, we just did it. Going to work that day, doing the same thing he did however many times. And that day, he just went up and
I know Sandy's husband personally, play golf with him every year for a different charity, for youth kids playing baseball.
Yeah.
And I know other police officers in the city, and when that happened, you call the ones that you love and the ones that you're friends with to make
Absolutely,
sure
yeah.
everyone is okay.
And
It's a very
happening-
dangerous job.
Yeah, and it's happening way too often. And it seems like now, totally off the subject, not on the list of things that we talked about.
We were going to talk about,
but
but
I
we said this was going to happen.
All right, I'll get rid of potholes. We'll talk about cops, all right? So, police just don't get the respect these days that they used to. As far as, it seems like everybody's against it. They're the low-hanging fruit, it seems like. It used to be politicians and lawyers, but now it seems like the cops have joined in with you guys.
My godfather was a police officer in New Bedford, came in right during the racial riots. And I remember growing up and going to his house, listening to the scanners. And he passed away when I was 16, the day I got my learner's permit. I'll never forget that day. But that mentality has changed so much. And part of that is social media. I was at a conference last year, and part of the group that was there was talking about social media. And the gentleman that spoke basically said, what's in your hand, that phone, that tablet, has changed the way people look at society, the way every issue can be discussed, analyzed. You didn't have to turn on the 6 o'clock news. Think about it, 6 o'clock news.
Everything's instant now.
It's instantaneously.
People want their results now.
Good, bad, or indifferent, and I'm not going to use fake news, I'm not going to say that, but good, bad, or indifferent, it's right there in front of you, instantaneously.
Absolutely.
And you can make a comment instantaneously. Not that it's a bad thing, because it's where
It's nice to
society is going.
participate, but we see a lot of experts that are extremely non-experts.
Yeah.
Chiming in and swaying people's opinions.
Correct. But it affects how everyone looks at politicians, looks at firefighters, looks at police officers, looks at anyone that's doing their job. It's where society is going. This gentleman basically said the downfall of civilization is social media, because everyone instantaneously can react to something without thinking. Ralph Sonia, who was the old Ward 6 city councilor, when I got elected the first time, I remember going to his house and talking to him. And you always want to learn from people that you knew, and I knew Ralph since I was a young child. He said, I wouldn't want to do your job today. And this was just when social media was starting to take a role.
Of course.
He goes, when I was a city councilor, he goes, I didn't have call waiting on my phone. I came home for dinner, I took the phone off the receiver, and I had dinner with my family. But you can't do that today.
Can't get away from it now.
He goes, no one could email me because there was no thing as an email. If you wanted to be upset with me, you had to call. And if you got a busy signal, you had to call back. Or you had to write me a letter, put it in an envelope, and spend money on a stamp and put it in the mail. So you could be upset, you'd write it down. The simple act of putting a stamp on it would change the way people would look, and they'd give you a call, or they'd see you at the grocery store, and they would try to talk about an issue. But today, instant messaging, social media, you name the outlet,
Oh, yeah.
it's instant.
You got guys like that embrace it, You got guys like Ian, it seems like he's on Facebook all day. He's
I don't know
out
how he
there,
does
he
it. God
gets
bless
tagged
him.
in everything. Like, there's a bird trapped in somewhere. Let's tag Ian Abreu, and and God bless him, the guy gets it done sometimes, when he does it.
That's the
But I
difference
mean,
between
I
an
don't
at-large and
think,
award.
I think the connection should be there,
It should.
but the city councils are not full-time employees.
Okay,
As
so
for, you know what I mean, you understand
Oh,
what I'm
I
saying.
do.
You can't live off that, you have to do.
that's not the
it's-
point.
yeah.
So years ago, when I first ran, I was a teacher in Redwood Public Schools, working at Roosevelt Middle School. And I wouldn't be able to take a pay. If you work for the city and you run for office, you cannot take a pay.
Can't take that.
And it was at a debate at the community center inside Fort Tabor. And I said, I'm not running for the pay. I'm running because I want to do the job.
Absolutely.
And I know I can do the job. The pay was never the thing that mattered to me. It honestly was, and doing the job. And I remember talking about playgrounds. We can segue right into this. There was a debate my second time running for office. Third time. Matt Morrissey was running for mayor at the time. Scott Lang was running. Everyone was running against Fred Kalis. And we actually had a debate at Hazelwood Park. And I got to give my little 4-minute speech why I wanted to run for office. And I told the people there, I said, look around. I said, that playground hasn't been done since I was a child. Park benches, trees, you name it. The city hasn't done, prior to Enda Scott Lang's tenure and John Mitchell's tenure, Hurricane Gloria, Hurricane Bob destroyed Hazelwood Park as relates to trees. It was a tree-lined park. I grew up there as a child. First thing I did when I got elected was spend $175,000 to build a playground. I know exactly what a playground costs. It's not a cheap proposition
No.
for anyone to do. Now, I was lucky at the time, community development block grants didn't change the census as it related to where it is now in funding. So I literally got elected. One of my first meetings was with Patrick Sullivan. And I said, Pat, I want a playground. I said, because I know how important a playground is to a community and to kids growing up. Some of my fondest memories are walking with my dad 3 streets over and playing at a playground. And it's funny how we segue into this, but it's the truth. As a young kid,
Absolutely.
everyone gets to go to the playground.
It's an important aspect.
It
It's where you can actually spend time with your kids without.
Correct.
Having
Actually, you
this-
have
yeah.
it there because you're taking a video or you're doing 1,000 different things.
That's true.
It's-
I mean, it's a
but
multi. It's a multi-tool,
different.
but yeah.
Yeah.
Every day we try to do something with our kids because we're all guilty of it. I mean, I do this stuff on New Bedford Guide, so I need the social media. I do. It's part of what we do. I couldn't do some of the nice things I try to do in the community had it not been
Without it.
for this. It's the truth. You've done things, grassroots things, and without the power of social media, it takes a lot more work. Not saying what the things that we try to do now are less work, but it's kind of like it's a great tool to get stuff done.
When I won in 2009, I didn't want to have Facebook. And a friend of mine that was working on my campaign said, you need to have one. And I said, okay, that's fine. If I need to have one, you run it, you manage it, you do it. And she did. She set up my first Facebook account, the one I still have, she set up. And from the day nomination papers went in till the day I won, she managed it all the time. I would take a picture, I would text it to her, she'd write the caption, she would do it all. She did everything. I got elected, and I was still sending her things. And she's like, you might want to learn how to do this yourself. Like, I'm not going to be able to do it all the time. And I was like, you know what? You're right. But it's the way society has embraced social media.
It has to be done.
It's free advertising, and the cost to run a campaign is not cheap.
At all. Now let's move on to the topic that everybody wants to talk about because it's going to create revenue, it's going to create jobs, it's going to do this, it's going to do that. The savior of the South Coast that everybody's talking about.
Are we going to go with casinos? Are we going to go with
the casino's dead in the
water? Or are we going to
water.
go with the commuter rail? Because those have always been the saviors.
No, not yet. Now it's marijuana. We're going to go back to the old days.
Yep.
The easy, natural plant that creates no issues, and I can keep going with all the stuff, how great it is. And I do find that there are good, like I'm just going to say this right now, I voted against the legalization, but mind you, today, if both alcohol and marijuana were illegal and we had to choose one based on evidence of addiction, problems and outcomes of usage of both of them, and we had to choose one, I give you that. Marijuana is the one I'm choosing. But that's not the case, and it's now a different type of stimulant, mind-altering, however you want to put it, medicine in some cases, that we voted on. It's now legal. It's now got to be embraced, but we are now dragging our feet after the people have spoken. That's the tone and how people feel in this area. Please explain why it's taking so long. Please explain what the apprehension is. Please explain why so much tax is involved. And
I don't think it's apprehension. So I actually voted against it, and I was one of the people in City Council in its initial state that didn't support it. But I was lucky that I get to know Chappie, and I know you've met Chappie from Bass.
I actually cut the video. We're going to run it again tomorrow.
I got to meet Chappie, I got to meet Tim Kehoe, and saw the facility in Rhode Island. And they gave me a lot of tools on the medical side. And I remember talking to a friend of mine who I respected dearly, whose very good friend was suffering through Parkinson's. And the only thing that helped him with the shakes was the actual cannabis oil.
The oil.
The oil, not edibles or anything else, but it was the oils that actually helped him with the
There are
shaking of his
plenty
hands.
of documented cases where the oils actually do great things.
So listening to him and doing more research on it, I was one of the councils that changed their vote. And it moved forward in the city. It wasn't Basque, but it's still moving forward in the city. Now you talk about the recreational side of the equation. You gotta remember, municipalities were delayed in actually implementing it until the state legislatures had their way with changing what was approved by the home rule petition.
Yes.
So that delayed everything. Licenses are just now being issued at the state level, and they're just finding the way to check to make sure there's no issues with what people are consuming, buying.
Testing then.
Correct. So my last term as city council president last year, I actually established the first committee for zoning of recreational cannabis in the Commonwealth. It was the first one. And I did put Councilor Abreu in charge of it, and Council President Mourao has moved him in charge of it as well for this year as well. Now, I did it last year knowing that even if you didn't support it or you didn't embrace it, it was coming. It's not the panacea for municipal government that people think it's going to be. I personally, is it going to create a revenue stream? Yes. Is it going to create jobs? Yes.
It's going to fall far short of what people are saying.
But it's going to fall far short of what people expected it to create in revenue. It's not Colorado. It's not Oregon. I'm not saying we're not going to get down that road, but the way the state has structured it in a manner, it's going to be a slow-moving process.
Absolutely.
Now, the municipality that we're talking about, New Bedford, we have language that has been voted on. That's going to the full city council meeting for the next city council agenda that would establish the zoning and ordinance for it. We made some minor changes
for the laymen out there that are watching. What goes into the zoning and all that stuff?
So zoning, we looked at a number of different issues. One, we had to create or establish a language that would work both at the council level and also get accepted by the mayor. So we worked, our attorney Garotowski, and the city solicitor, Michaela McDermott, worked collectively together with Patrick Sullivan, community development and planning, to actually create an ordinance that would work across the entire city. Now, this is being modeled in a manner in which we'll be able to continuously grow and expand on what we're approving. Similar to what was mentioned when we were doing this, was originally tattoo parlors in New Bedford were put in the not nicest of neighborhoods, if we're going to be realistic.
Absolutely.
And I worked with one of the tattoo owners to have it in downtown New Bedford, and there's one in downtown New Bedford. So that changed the ordinance and the zoning on it. And then we changed the hours of operations on it, and we've changed how it's screened or not screened. All of that has taken time. The original tattoo ordinance was approved, I'm going to say about 14 years ago. To where we are today, it's a very welcoming, open business in the city. I'm not saying it's going to take 14 years for recreational marijuana facilities to have that same level of openness and acceptance, but I think realistically you're going to see over the next couple of years some people's apprehensions towards it diminishing when they realize it's not going to be, you know, the evil business owner next door.
No.
And I think you'll see it grow and expand.
I think I scheduled a post for tomorrow, maybe in the afternoon, where I explain how the Basque facility in Fairhaven is probably one of the cleanest places I've ever walked into. Like, I'm a clean dude, and I said it on the video. Man, their standards are so high. Any restaurant you eat at today, and I have friends that own restaurants, is not going to be as clean as that facility. The testing that is going to need to be taking place. The issue right now with the state is the testing facility.
Is the testing on it for recreational,
Yeah, for recreational.
Not the medical side. Yep.
Now, two things. Jamie chimes in and says, Jamie D'Souza, a close friend of mine and Joe's. I actually met Joe many years ago when they were running against each other. Where are you guys?
So no, Jamie ran at large. I ran in the ward, but Jamie and I go back to Roosevelt Junior.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
That's
me
how
and
I met
Jamie
you guys.
yeah.
And you know, I actually helped Jamie out with this campaign, and then Jamie turned into this crazy lunatic in politics. And no, just kidding. He's a great guy. But he says that he believes that Fairhaven got it first because they believe in capitalism, and so he thinks that New Bedford missed the bus on it.
Fairhaven got it first because it failed in New Bedford, and I actually called one of the selectmen in Fairhaven and said, "We're missing this opportunity. You should run with it." Within the next day, Chappie and I'm drawing a blank on his name. Tim Kehoe met with one of the selectmen in Fairhaven, and they were working with the Board of Health the next day.
Yeah. Jamie loves that because Jamie made a little
Jamie
money.
built it, yes. Of course Jamie loves it. But
So-
it was designed to come into New Bedford.
Back to because one thing about the zoning that a lot of people, and you know, with the kids and the tattoo parlors, you're still going to be against placing these near schools. How is that working with the kids?
So the state
schools?
allows a 250 foot buffer. We have a 500 foot buffer. No schools, no church, no churches, no schools. I'm trying to remember all of them. There are a handful of buffer requirements, and it's going to go in industrial A, B, and C areas to start. So you won't see it technically in residential neighborhoods in the beginning. I do think you'll see over the next 3 to 5 years the zoning change to get a little more openness once people realize it's not going to cause the problems they believe it could happen. And it's never going to be to the same level of the number of liquor stores that the city has. If you look at what's happened in Colorado and Oregon, you've had countless people open up, and they weren't able to sustain, and larger companies have bought them. The biggest issue right now, if you knew, New York Times and Wall Street Journal talked about this a couple weeks ago, you're going to see a lot of money come in from Canada into the U.S. market. And I say Canada because Canada decriminalized it completely. They were able to raise it at the stock exchange, and banks are able to lend on it in Canada.
Yeah.
So you're going to see Canadian influence in not just Massachusetts, but in Colorado and in
Absolutely.
Oregon, until the federal government decides to say, you know what, the 1932 or 1934 Act that actually that criminalized marijuana, and marijuana was criminalized not because of its psychedelic tendencies, but because the cotton growers of America
Oh,
didn't
yeah, it
want
was a big business.
hemp farmers growing hemp
yeah.
because hemp is a stronger material than cotton.
And it actually, it's less, God, I'm drawing a blank on my English today. Someone let me borrow this thesaurus, please. It does less damage
So for
to the,
crops, you can rotate the crops better.
Exactly.
It has a stronger tendency to grow.
Faster growth life,
Yes. so-
everything.
But the cotton farmers in the Midwest in
Of
the early
course.
30s didn't want it, and they were able to win.
Well, since we started growing too much cotton now, corn. Remember we tried doing the E85 thing?
E85.
That was a fail miserably, and it still is, and we're still getting basically farmers on welfare to pay for this corn.
Ethanol, yeah.
Yeah, so why don't we get there and just grow hemp instead and use it for the other properties? And even if you just took all the buds out, hemp is a great plant to use for.
I think you're going to see within the next couple of years, the federal government's going to have to say, you know what,
Yeah.
the tax benefit, and it's going to be a tax benefit to the country, is going to outweigh their reservations to it.
Yeah.
And it might not be under the Trump administration, it might be under the next administration, but I think you're going to, and it was close under the Obama administration, I think you'll see that you're going to say, you know what, the tax benefits to the country.
I don't understand the fight, to be honest with you. Jeff Sessions and we're still gonna go after the state. To me, there's other fights to fight.
There are
This
way
isn't
more
it.
important fights. This is
This
low
isn't
hanging
it.
fruit.
You know, it really is. Enough marijuana. Let's get to your zone, which is Ward 6. Ward 6 is probably I'm kind of biased here because I'm an Ocean guy and I grew up down there. I have family that I spent all the time down there. Cleggfield, Poor Farm in the winter, Hazelwood Park, Lisbon Bakery down on Ruth Street. Every Sunday I went there with my dad, you know what I mean?
Commons for me.
Was it Commons?
It's Commons.
There's a difference. You know
There is
what I
a
mean?
difference. I
There is
remember
a
going to
difference.
Commons with my dad.
The place has kind of gotten a little rough towards the entrance. There's been a lot of growth with the new buildings down on the peninsula themselves. But people are starting to, the landlords who are not there, the family structure that's not there. What are you doing to bring that back to more of a family-friendly area? Is there any ordinances that you'd like to get going now for these landlords that are actually kind of bringing a little bit of problems to those areas?
So we've actually worked with the administration over the last 3 to 4 years on the Housing Task Force ordinance and things of that nature that have actually made it a little more difficult for some of these landlords to get away with certain things they're doing. But they're always going to find the opportunity to do it. One of the things we're doing now, as most people know, with the new public safety center, it's going to be located on Brock Ave, at the St. Anne's Church. We have assigned P&S moving forward with that. The new public safety center is going to take an area for nearly 25 years that has been somewhat blighted and bring new life to it. My grandfather, God rest his soul, I remember him having the discussion. When they closed the church, the Catholic schools closed and then the church closed, he said neighborhood was going to fall apart because there was no longer an anchor in the neighborhood. When you walked your kid to school, you saw something you called. When the church closed, you didn't go to church on Fridays and Saturdays or Sundays. So there's all of those things started to slowly deteriorate our neighborhood. And that was in the late 80s. I was in Roosevelt Junior High School at the time, and I remember my grandfather saying it. The minute the school closed, you would start seeing families move out of neighborhoods. And it slowly has happened, and it continues to happen. The new public safety center is going to be an anchor in the neighborhood. It is going to bring life to an area that has been, when the sun sets, it's dark. No matter if there's a playground across the street, which we redid a couple years ago. When you open up that station, you're going to have police officers, firefighters, EMS. It's going to bring life back to a neighborhood. You're seeing it now on Emory Street with the new Irwin Jacobs School.
Yes.
Remember 12 years ago, Hannigan School imploded.
Yeah.
The neighborhood slowly changed.
Absolutely.
And it didn't happen overnight, but it slowly changed. Why? Because there wasn't an anchor in that neighborhood. It's important to have anchors in neighborhoods.
100%.
They bring life. And life seeing a kid outside playing baseball or stickball against the building. I know I went to Taylor School, but I can't count the number of times that I went to Hannigan with my friends to play street hockey or something else. And you start seeing that. When we built it, we made sure that the parking lot that was there and the school was there has a basketball court that's not closed off when the school closes. So kids can go play basketball on a really nice basketball court. We have a toddler and an adolescent playground that is amazing for kids to enjoy. You bring life into a neighborhood. I was actually on the street today talking to one of the neighbors that had a question about something that was getting addressed. It was overgrown grass. But I was also talking to the neighbors. I said, well, is it nice having the playground back? She was, oh my God. Seeing kids in the neighborhood playing, families coming in when the school hour was done to bring life to a neighborhood. All those things, when you see something, you're more apt to call the police or question what's going on in the neighborhood. So all of those things are good things in the neighborhood. Tuesday, I went to the farmer's market on Brock Ave. And
those are great. They have one downtown today that we covered, New Bedford Guide, and it's a wonderful thing to see.
And for a few hours, you take an old vacant lot across from the church, which was the bakery, and you bring life to that parking lot again. And I can't tell you the number of people that stopped while I was there with my son. I got some peaches and I got some salad. That just stopped and picked up little things.
Absolutely.
That they were going to go home and make. And they don't even have the card to do snaps yet, the benefits. So once they get that, you're even going to bring more activity to that little lot. All those things are important.
It's a multifaceted win right there, because you're getting people to eat fresh, homegrown produce, and that's something we also got to get back to. Back to what you're saying about the neighborhoods and all this stuff. I've talked to Mayor Lang about this. I've talked to Dr. Mike about this. The best buildings we have in this city are these new schools.
They are.
What about opening them up at night for different things? I know it's finances. I know it costs money. I know. But there's got to be a way to do it. You know what I mean? Where we can use these gyms for night classes to get kids off the street at night. Because we all know, the second the street lights come on, that's when the bad stuff happens. It's always been that way. If we can get, especially in the winter when you see in these kids, you know, when it's dark at 4 o'clock and it's cold.
So when I was a teacher, I actually ran an after-school basketball program, Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And it was amazing. I had about 110 kids come, and all my years of running it had 3 incidents. And it's exactly what you're saying. Kids want an outlet at night. The new Hannigan, the new Irwin Jacobs School, that playground doesn't close. And the gym is different, the interior of the gym. That has to go to the school department. If you want to rent the gym, and you can rent the gym. So let's say you wanted to start an indoor basketball league.
Oh, I don't want to start up an indoor basketball league. I just want to be able to have it for these kids, like have a recreational program through the city, not for Joe Public. And I understand now we're at the age where capitalism and Joe Public are going to have to start stepping up.
Well, there's always that mix, and that's a very hard mix. I'll tell you, so my son takes karate on Tuesdays at the old Vogue gym. And it's $20 to $25 a month, and he's there, and I see that gym is so utilized, the Hillman Street gym, that complex. It's an amazing facility. But that's a city facility. That's not a school department facility. And the city funds that out of our budget. So if you're looking at how do we open up the school gyms, then you need to make sure that there's people there to man it, to staff it, and that comes out of their budget. And that's that budget is already tight as it is.
Oh, it's extremely tough. My wife's a teacher in the city,
so it's managing that. And I do know from talking to so many members of the school committee that are active members of the school committee. Bruce Oliver, let's talk about Bruce for 13 seconds. My boy's coached even after his kids graduated and just recently gave up coaching at Wheeling City Youth Baseball. You think Bruce wouldn't want to have a gym open up at each one of the middle schools across the city? I know if you could find it in the budget, they would work to do something of that magnitude. Because it is so important to a neighborhood to have those buildings be active during, not just during the day, but at night.
Yeah.
For the cost of what it costs to build them and to maximize them, yes.
It's tough. It's a tough situation, and it all comes down to money, guys. And at some point, I hate to sound like this guy that's, you know, pushing these future movies, but everything's going to be sponsored by. We're going to need these big businesses to come into this region. And I don't know if it's through tax cuts or whatever, have them put money into the city, because, you know, if you donate $100,000 to the city to fund stuff like this, it's actually like a $300,000 write-off. I mean, it's simple economics when it comes to business write-offs. And I wish more people would do it, you know, because, you know, the Joseph Aboods, the South Coast Hospital has been doing a lot. I mean, look, I got the T-shirt on. But we're going to need these companies, these industries to come in and do stuff for the kids and cultivate our future and help do so with their financial, these companies are well funded at this point.
So there's actually a couple of motions on the council floor that are in the ordinance committee and also working with the administration. So one is mine and one is Councilor Abreu's. Mine is some of the pocket parks we have across the city that need a little more attention. I was talking to one of the small business owners that I know personally that owns a landscaping business. He's like, Joe, I'd love to maintain that pocket park. Let me put a sign there year round, maintained by XYZ.
There you go.
He goes, and I'll gladly maintain it all year long. But you have to draft the language, and the language has to get approved by the administration. The other one is,
It has to be like bidding too, like.
well, you have to put it out.
Yeah.
Somebody, if they want to do it, then what's the cost associated with it, and then you have to go from that point. And then there's also, do you allow sponsorship on city-owned buildings? That opens up, and where we are in New England, that's something that we really haven't done. Across the country, you go to Atlanta or you go to other communities, that's a big thing.
It's a huge thing.
It's what keeps school systems going.
Absolutely.
It also keeps some municipalities, their buildings going, sports teams, athletic teams, school buses, you name it. I was talking to the AD at the high school. If you go to the high school right now and you look at the scoreboards, they need new scoreboards. But it's the cost of raising scoreboards, so you gotta put advertisement on it. That's okay, because there's always been advertisement on those scoreboards, but now it's getting people to get engaged and say, you know what, I wanna sponsor X, Y, and Z on a school board and be there for X number of years. It's
Even like little ideas, like, I don't know, subbing out the food at football games and doing all that stuff. with
the
people.
concession stands. Well, a lot of those run by boosters, which help support the kids, get new uniforms or
Yeah.
take a trip. I know, my stepdaughters, one of them plays volleyball, and they have the boosters support what the kids are doing, scholarships and their trips based on what they raise in pizza sales and candy bars.
So we both agree, though, that it's time to think outside the box.
You have to think outside the box. For government to continue to advance at the level in which people expect it to, you have to think outside the box. The box doesn't exist anymore.
What people need to realize, basically, is government has to make business-friendly regions in order for businesses to give back. Yes, they're making a ton of money. They always will, and that's just how it is. They always have been. But if we can incentivize them to donate to the city and do other things, we gotta get kind of tricky and change a couple rules and regulations here to get it done. And you agree with that, and I love hearing that. We got another 5 minutes, guys. So every $5 that's donated, Carla put up the link. Councilor Lopes will match it. I'll let you pick the next, you're getting the mayor question, so.
I know I'm getting the mayor question, so.
We got expanding the peninsula with business. What I meant by that was you got places like Me and Ed's and stuff like that. We're on the water. That's the most beautiful area in the city. Is there any tricks that you guys are trying to do that bring these businesses down to the most beautiful part of our city?
So I'll tell you, we work, Derek Santos from Economic Development, Derek and I have met countless times and promoting the area. The Harbor Walk on East and West Beach.
Beautiful.
The new schools, the new public safety center that's going to be built, all of those things bring value and quality of life.
Absolutely.
But you still need to maximize that with establishments. But if you look at living in the South End, I've done it my entire life, there's always been just a handful of restaurants. And only one is closed, if you really think about it, and that's Davies. So how do you bring somebody back into Davies? Other than that, in the Hazelwood Luncheonette.
Yeah.
There's that. And that gentleman has tried countless times bringing somebody in to run a restaurant. Everybody thinks they can run a restaurant. It's not always the easiest thing to do.
No.
So that's the issue. But there's only been a handful of places that haven't survived. And Davies closed because the owner moved to Florida. It's not, Davies would have continued. It was self-perpetuating. People loved going there. Smugglers wasn't a restaurant. It had the ice cream stand.
Yeah.
But that was it. But you talk about the South End, it's always been Me and Ed's. Cafe Italia is only 8 years old. That's 9 years old. That's one of the newest restaurants in the South End. Me and Ed's has been there since I was a child. I still remember getting a pooper platter there and seeing the Little Flame and grilling my spare ribs. Which
that place was awesome. Yeah. I'd like to see somebody take over and continue it,
Well, Me and Ed's is still open.
That's what I'm saying. Me and Ed's, they're going to sell
and
it.
So is Mihong's. Ion, you know what? I think if it was to be sold, it would have already happened by now. That's an amazing property. You get the building and the parking lot. You're getting the name. You're getting the goodwill. If somebody was going to buy it, I think you would have accepted an offer. I think you just wanted to see what the value of it was.
I got a question for you that somebody brought up to me that other places in the country are doing. You have these expansive parks, huge, lot of land, in pretty good areas. Hazelwood, prime property. Brooklawn, prime property. I can keep going. Buttonwood, prime property. Do you ever think about zoning part of those parks and maybe doing some city-owned and leasing? Like the famous developer around here, Michael Panagakis, he owns everything. Why doesn't the city take a little of their land and build to lease?
Parkland is not the easiest thing to change. There's actually state statute that you have to meet if you're ever going to alter parkland. So it's not just, let me cut up an acre of land at Hazel Park and do it. No. So I would rather see, and this sounds off the beaten path, not in my ward, but if you go by Cogswell Street, the basketball court behind Route 195, that basketball court hasn't been used in years. I would rather take that parcel of land right near Kyler Seafood and develop that parcel of land. I'd rather look at land that we have in the city that has no use on it right now and redevelop that. I'd rather sell that for $1 through an RFP than take a piece of parkland that you'll never bring back to green space.
At least you're thinking like that, because you guys can be landlords.
We could. We are landlords for other properties, and we're working on leases that we have, renewing leases at better, more favorable terms to the city. You gotta remember, some of these leases we signed were 40 years ago, or 99-year leases.
Of course, yeah.
So there was issues. But it also comes down to, I had this discussion with Governor Baker, fund the brownfields program as it needs to be funded. Allow municipalities to take some of that land and actually clean it. You're not going to turn it to housing or anything living of that nature, but actually repurpose it as economic development land that would have a good base of the city. The tax base would grow, people's ability to spend more in their community would grow, and the residential rate would drop because you'd have more of a commercial rate.
That's what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
You know, everybody cries about their taxes, and this would be part of the solution, to get businesses in. And you got to offer incentives at first, though, to these businesses. I
think if you sold surplus land in the city through an RFP process, you would see certain people willing to jump into it. That parcel of land that I'm talking about, off the highway, that's Cogswell Street exit.
Yeah.
If you put that out there, not that I want a Dunkin' Donuts or a Taco Bell or anything of that nature, but you're telling me right off a major intersection, somebody wouldn't buy that land?
Of course.
That would be scooped up in a heartbeat.
You'd also have to ease the codes, too. A lot of people complain about building codes and all that stuff. Look at Seattle, I believe, just basically screwed themselves hardcore with their codes, building codes.
So you can take it too far, too. You look at California. So California gave TIFs away to anyone to try to establish a second Silicon Valley. And they actually put a free meal service in. And now the businesses in San Francisco around all these mega tech spaces saying, wait a second, my restaurant's failing because they're having a free cafeteria inside because that was part of the TIF to allow tax-free food eating.
Yeah.
And so Google has space in San Francisco in what they call in the second Silicon Valley. And when they do neighborhood eating twice a week, some of these restaurants see a 20% increase in their sales when Google employees walk out. So whatever you do for zoning or to finance something, you got to look at the
You can't be short-sighted.
You can't be short-sighted, no.
Of course. Well, here it is. The final question that everybody wants to know, and I actually got to go look back on the New Bedford Guide page from this morning. I'll do that while I ask you. And while you answer, mayor, the 4-year term passed. I was against it.
So was I.
I think that a mayor should be 2 years in the city
agree.
because it keeps you constantly with your people. Campaigning is not campaigning when you're mayor. It's doing your job, getting out with the people, going into your neighborhoods, speaking to people, not just showing up like they're coming out, must be an election year. And that's what you do when you go to the 4 years. But now that we're at 4 years, first part of the question, would you be interested in being a mayor sometime in the future?
In the future, yes, I would. I love the city. It's home. It's been my family's home for going on 100 years. It's also where I'm raising 3 kids now. It's home. And when I think of New Bedford, I honestly think of my home, my community. Literally, those ladies over there have known Carla since high school, Sandy. You know, when they had a question about the Gannon, literally, it was late Saturday night. And yeah, I'll take the call immediately because I know them. You go to Market Basket, you go to Stop and Shop, and it takes an hour and a half to go grocery shopping because you stop and talk to somebody.
Absolutely.
I could easily go to Peapod. I don't want that. I want to go and I want to see
That's
my
campaigning.
Neighbor. It is.
That's campaigning.
You know, I was in the 5th or 6th grade. My grandparents took me and my brother to D.C. I always wanted to be in politics. I love politics. And I got to meet Tip O'Neill. And he told me a story that he's wrote about countless times. He never got his barber's vote. And he never asked for his barber's vote. And that's where politics is local. You literally have to ask people for their vote.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't matter if you're running for city council, school committee, assessor, mayor. It is truly, especially where we live, a local race where you need to know who you're talking to. You need to know your neighbors, and you have to build those relationships. And it's also about making the tough decision and still having that relationship and that friendship that they understand that not every question is going to be yes to their question. Sometimes you have to say no, and you have to be able to defend why you're saying no. It's easy to say
People
yes.
don't like the inconvenient truth.
No, but I tell people all the time, I will always say the truth, good, bad, or indifferent. Would you rather have me lie to you, I can't get it done, and then I got to tell you I failed? No, I'd rather tell you the likelihood of me getting X, Y, and Z done is going to be difficult. If I can get it done for you, I promise I will. And you can't always get it done immediately. There's a sidewalk for a small business owner in the south end off County Street that's being done right now. The request was made last year, but it was made too late in the construction season. So we had to wait. Nobody wants to wait.
No.
But I told him, I said,
It goes back to the phones we were talking about.
Correct.
Everybody wants instant answers and instant action.
it'll get done in this construction year. I'm telling you, this construction year. If you go by right now, it's getting work done. But it didn't happen immediately when you wanted it. It was getting done, but it's in the timeline in which the city operates.
As long as you tell people straightforward that that's how it works, then I see no issue with that. And I think most reasonable people will understand that's how. I mean, government's slow. It's how it works. There's a process that needs to be streamlined, and I know you've worked towards that. So now that you gave us the political answer, what's the real answer? You running for mayor next time or what?
No, honestly. You know Missy. Missy and I have had this conversation, and I honestly love what I do.
Perfect.
Good, bad, or indifferent. I love being city councilor of Ward 6. I've wanted to do it since I was a little kid. I remember going to Taylor School in Roosevelt with Ralph Saw Your bumper sticker, Ralph Saw Your button on my book bag. Like, I was a kid that wanted to be a politician. I love being a city councilor, and I love being there.
And I know that's the truth because when I first met you through Jamie,
Yeah.
that was the case. And Jamie was the same way.
Oh,
Jamie gave up on it. Jamie's now a capitalistic businessman,
Jamie didn't
building
give up on it.
marijuana and factories and going against all the stuff he was, his agenda back then changed a little bit. And your mindset depends on that. And
No,
his
I will
mindset
be
has
running
gone
for
towards
re-election.
business. Awesome. I found the question that somebody had asked because this morning I went live, and it's amazing. I just looked, 2,500 people saw me on my back porch this morning. Metal detectors for schools and dogs to sniff out anything. Angelita Soto asked this, and the reason I'm going to get involved before you even answer, because some people say, oh, he's just a politician. He's not in charge of schools. He's not a school committee member. He cannot implement this stuff, as we talked about with me asking him to open the schools up at night. But I'll let him give his version of that.
To be, in all honesty, I would have no issues with metal detectors in schools. I think the program needs to start at the high schools, not the elementary schools. It needs to be worked down to the level, but I also think you have to address the core problem. In 2014, when the state basically changed the educational standards for how you discipline a child, they weakened it dramatically. The state has to understand that not every city is Cambridge. And not every city has a population of Cambridge.
Absolutely.
And there are issues in communities, and you can't take something that's designed for a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant community and implement it across the city, across the country, I apologize. So you need to look at that. And I think the government or the state needs to give municipalities a little more leeway as it relates to what we're doing in our communities. And I think moving in the area of metal detectors, it is going to happen sooner or later. It is. When do you embrace it? That's the question. When we went to school, there were no cameras in the hallways. Think about it.
We had one monitor.
Yeah. 20 years later, 30 years later, you now have school resource officers. You have cameras in the schools. It's changing with technology. Is it going to happen sooner or later? I think realistically, within your lifetime, my lifetime, I think you'll easily see metal detectors in schools. They're in other parts of the country, they have them,
Yeah.
but there's still violence in those schools. You're
Absolutely.
never going to get to absolute zero.
There's never going to be a zero in anything. There's no way to eliminate crime. There's no way to eliminate hate, or else we'd legislate that a long time ago.
As a friend of mine said to me when I had this conversation, we actually talked about metal detectors.
We're leaving in about 2 minutes. We're wrapping up. No, you guys can stay. I just want to say bye.
A buddy of mine said this. He goes, no matter what, you still see violence in prisons, and those are inmates, and they have shanks and other things of that nature.
Metal detectors, screening,
screening,
body cavity
everything.
searches, everything.
If somebody wants to do something illicit, they will find a way to do it.
You can't
That's the scary
legislate
part.
away hate, and that's
No.
just
And that's the biggest thing.
you got Nicholas Gomes just saying horta is best fish, best fried fish, and I agree with you. They did have some good
Portuguese style, I like it with the
Yeah.
onions and everything else.
Well, Joe, I've been trying to get Joe on for a while, and scheduling finally it happened. He couldn't do it. I couldn't do it, but you're here. It was painless, as far as I know. Well, my lack of
Yeah, I think so.
words today. I don't know. My vocabulary just shut down for some reason. I get nervous around the big guys like Joe.
Oh, please, I still remember when I finally said I could do this, it was at Papagino's in South Diamond with my son on a snowy night. I still remember it. I
I
said,
know.
I'll make it work, don't
Hey,
worry
man,
about
you
it.
always, here's a guy, I don't even live in the city. I try to do a lot for the city because, it means a lot to me. My wife works here. We mentor children in the city. I grew up in the city and around the city. But I played in the softball league. And, hey, Joe, please. And I felt like I was bothering him all the time.
Never.
Because the guys would be like, call your boy. It's his ward, Can you get something down here? And you always answered. And I appreciate that. I know I'm not the only guy you did that for.
No, but I tell people, if every year, every election, somebody talks to me about what it is to run for office, I tell people all the time, unless you're willing to make yourself available, don't run. Because it's not your schedule, it's somebody else's schedule.
Absolutely.
And when I ran and got elected, I remember telling somebody, even if you think the issue's not important, I have to think it's important because it's bothering you. So whatever you're working towards, it's important. So I have to see that same importance. And it might not be at 6 in the morning or 7 in the morning. I can tell you I've received phone calls at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I sleep with my phone by my bed. Good, bad, or indifferent, I sleep with the phone by my bed. And I had a lady call me, her front lawn was on fire, got hit by lightning 8 years ago. And she called me before she called the fire department. I'm like, ma'am? I'm like, I would have called the fire department first, but let me hang up and call the fire department for you. And there was literally her front lawn caught on fire.
That's hilarious. So
But
you do have to be available.
You do.
You don't have to be like Ian, though, on the... He commented in here, he's a fan of yours, he thanks you, and I'm a fan of Ian myself. The guy helps me out every time I need something, and I'm actually calling him out now. Donate money to these ladies. You got it. You're going to run for mayor someday. Take some of that money out, and it'll come back to you, I promise.
Anyone that runs for office does it from their heart no matter what, because you're giving of yourself.
I always say that because everybody says politicians are all dirty, and I say there's a very few, if any, politicians that run for the wrong reasons, but there are those who get corrupted as time goes on. That's how it works in my mind, and I feel.
I honestly think at the local level, it's different. The only politics that you can touch is the local level.
Yeah, no, I love
Most
local.
people don't know their congressman,
Yeah.
so if you saw him at the grocery store, you're gonna walk by him.
Yeah, of course.
But you know your city council, you know your school committee member,
that's what I
because you
tell
know them in
everybody.
the community.
Everybody's fighting on Facebook. Trump this, Trump that. Elizabeth Warren's a fake Indian. Elizabeth Warren's that. Like Hillary Clinton, all this. And it's every day on Facebook. But you want to know what? None of that really matters. You are not making a difference arguing with your neighbor on Facebook. Go out, support a playground. Go out, buy waters or pizza for my event coming up, Cuts for Kids. It's not my event. It's our event. There's a ton of barbers involved. I got like 70 barbers and stylists. You want to make a difference? The hell with arguing on Facebook. Go out, find people like Carla and Sandy. Find people like myself. Find people like Joe. Joe is a city councilor. He works at a bank right now.
I do work at a bank.
And he's part of like 17 different other organizations that help Prince Henry Society. I can go on the list. But these
yeah.
ladies, I made them stay, so we're going to cut it short.
So we're gonna cut it short.
But please, get involved in your community and donate time, donate your efforts. If you see a piece of paper in your neighborhood that you say, this place has gone to crap, pick it up. You don't need to spend money, but you can do things in your community to make a difference. Thank you, everybody, for watching again. It was great being back. I missed you guys on my vacation, and I'm sure you didn't miss my shiny head on the vacation.
I think mine's a little shiny.
You are definitely
A
shiny.
little shinier.
Thank you so much. And don't forget, guys, how I opened up the show. Everybody fails. I fail every day. I failed before I got here. Get up, learn from it, grow from it, and start back again, and try not to make the same mistake twice. Good night. God bless everyone. Thank you, AJ, for running producer tonight. Appreciate it. There's always people working behind the scenes that you don't see here at New Bedford Guide, and AJ is one of them. Thank you so much. Thank you to our guests, Sandy, Carla, Councilor Lopes.
Thank you.
And thank you to our viewers. Appreciate you, and I will see you next week. We have a great show coming on, and hope to see you soon. Good night. God bless.